What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Phantom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I am here with Anthony, Lori, and Mike, and we are discussing episode 3 of Shadow and Bone season 2, in which we find out that Cass Brecker really is that motherfucker.
Man, listen. I mean, just like this episode, they spent a lot of time talking about finding weaknesses, and it's like everybody those guys found essentially dug out the wrong weakness because he doesn't have him fighting with a cane is not a weakness. That is a decided strength.
Let me tell you. So we've always known that Cass was like the leader of the group, and you never really see him get physical, And I was just like, when he walked up in there, he was like, I'm not here for the cowards and the cadgers. I'm here for the killers, people like me. I was like, what is he? And when they started coming after him and he started fighting, I was like, oh, wait. Like, I'm looking at his character in a totally new light now. This dude was whooping some ass.
He wasn't messing around.
He wasn't. Anthony, you just look so stoic.
Well, I mean, do you know how heavy the head of that cane is? That shit hurts.
Man.
Yeah.
First of all, first of all, other than the dude with the knife, how y'all gonna come to him and he got a weapon? That's number one. I mean, I know he didn't have it that long, but I'm just saying the first 2 or 3 guys, y'all are gonna get hurt. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think
I'm not to take away from his skill, because if you think about it, he had nothing and he made it all the way up to owning his own club. So he probably knocked a few heads and he was probably in somebody's crew for a while. He got where he was by being tough and a hard ass. So, and Pekka didn't really mess with him either.
But he really got there by being smart. But it's like, this shows that it was, as soon as they locked the door, because I have to admit, I actually rewatched the Kingsman earlier, and when they locked it, it was almost a reverse of the part where he says manners lock maketh lock man. Then he turned around and threw the mug at and hit dude in the head. And I was like, oh, this is like it's almost that way. It's almost the same thing, but it's like as soon as Kaz put that cane out and put it down like this and just stood there, I'd been like, no. So no good's gonna come towards you after that. And then he has that smirk on his face, like, oh yeah, I'm about to fuck all y'all up. And it's like dude's standing at the bar, like, yeah, there's a lot of coin on your head, so I could just go ahead and I could just beat your ass and take it now. He's like, come on, try it.
I mean, and he kind of warned us about it in the scene before when he was talking to Inej, because when she was asking him about his weaknesses, he was like, the leg, the cane. People see that and they don't look for anything else.
Right.
Like, yeah, they're so busy looking at the fact that he's got a limp and that he has a quote unquote disability that they don't look at him and see any other strengths in him.
Yeah, because the next time you wake up, you're laying in your own blood, wondering how the hell
did I get here?
You got there
with the imprint of a crow cane on your temple. Like, God, like, wow, why is my head hurt?
I was just like, I was so impressed when I saw that, because he literally, like, and if you look at the majority of his fight, he did not move from the position he was in. Like, he literally turned around in the circle in the same spot. And he was just,
And his facial expression didn't really change either. It's like he still had like that little even lipped scowl on his face the whole time. Even when he was getting hurt, he didn't look like he was experiencing pain. He was just like, why are you hitting me? I'm getting ready to beat your ass. Why do you insist on continuing to try me? And it's like he beats everybody's ass, and it's like he looks at him at the bar and is like, now I'm just taking your men. I was gonna be nice about it, but fuck you.
Let me tell you, the way he walked up to that dude, because the guy was like, what you just did here, that doesn't mean anything. He was like, you're still who you are. We're not going to do anything for you. When Kaz walks up to him and he was like, the price for this city is blood, and I'll be happy to pay it in yours. The way that dude just went, He just looked down so slowly, like, wow, you just really embarrassed me in my own house in front of my own people, and there's not shit I can do about it. And when he turned around and he was like, who would you rather have standing at the door when the lions come for you? He was like, this or that, because that other guy, I can't remember what his name was.
Per Haskell.
Yes. But for him to be a leader, all he did was sit there. Like, I'm really sitting here looking at that scene. Like, how did he get control of all those badasses? Because he doesn't look like he can do squat.
No. I mean, this is like total, like he stood and alphaed him. It's like he looked him dead in the eye and was like, and just like he said, I could pay him out. As soon as he started talking about paying the city in his blood, he was just like, no, sir, I don't want it. I don't want this smoke, sir. Right. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, if you look
it looked straight down to the floor. I was like, yeah. And everyone else, when he turned around, he didn't even step down those 2 steps, and everyone else kind of took 2 steps back, like, oh shit,
and stood at attention. I was like, okay, so all right.
Yeah, and the title of the episode is "Like Calls to Like."
Yeah,
and he was asking for killers like him. So,
but the fact that none of them could, like, they got an upper hand on him a little bit, but it didn't last for long. I was like, okay, so there is more to Kaz Brekker than we have seen. But that's the one thing I'm liking about this this season, is because we're getting to see more of these characters that we know, and we're getting to see them in different, in different ways. Like Inej. Last season, Inej barely wanted to fight because she didn't want to be put in a situation where she might possibly have to kill someone. This season, oh no, Inej was like, oh, this dude said he gonna take me back to the menagerie. Let me go kill his ass right quick. No hesitation, no regret, no nothing. Inej went after that doggone taxidermist, and she was like, oh, so you thought you was about to get the upper hand on me? Yeah, let me show you something. I was watching this whole episode like, okay, so we really see what the crows are about between last episode with Jesper and seeing Kaz and Inej in this episode. I was like, there's a reason they have gotten as far as they have. Like, all these different dimensions to them. I'm loving it. And then again, like you said with Kaz, we knew he was smart. We know he's observant. But even some of the things that we find out in this episode, as far as how observant he is, the fact that he deduced that Pekka Rollins had a child because of what he named the club. I was like, I didn't even think about that. It just never crossed my mind. But again, we don't really know Pekka Rollins as well as Kaz does. Kaz has had prior experience, and we see a little bit more of that experience in his flashbacks in this episode, because his brother made a deal with Pekka way back when. He was going to give him the proceeds from the sale of their father's farm so that Pekka could invest it, quote unquote, invest it for them, and then give them the proceeds. And supposedly that was going to help them be rich. And you can't really blame Kaz's brother, because he really thought that this was a legit opportunity for him to be able to take care of him and his brother, for them not to be poor or just kind of like on the cusp of not being poor. He was really looking for an opportunity to help himself and his younger brother so that he could take care of them. And Pekka Rollins screwed them over, because when they went back in a week to go get their earnings, Pekka had cleared out of the house.
Did they show that, or I missed that?
They showed it in the flashback.
They showed it.
I missed it. Okay, I must have been looking down. All right, but yeah, because as soon as that little girl said it's all a game, I knew she was in on it too. And I was like, oh, so they are going to follow the books with that, because that was, let's face it, I know what happens next, but that was the start of just everything that was wrong with him and old boy. Seriously.
Yeah. And, so the fact that he was able to say, I know that there's a boy there. He named his club the Kalish Prince. when he would never name himself other than a king. I was like, oh, wow, that's actually kind of clever if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so that Kaz really paid attention to it. So it's like when Jesper told him and Wyland was like, you promised, so you lie and keep that from him. This is the person who leads your group, and regardless of I won't even say the errors that Kaz has made. Yes, Kaz has made a couple of mistakes, but I think that's just because he underestimated Pekka Rollins as well. But I think Pekka is going to learn to not underestimate Kaz as well, because Kaz, again, in this episode, once he realizes that Albie is a thing, and Wyland goes to him and he was like, look, he has no control over who his father is. You can't hurt him. And Kaz is like, oh, we're not going to have to harm him, but I do know how we're going to take him down. And when Wyland says, how? And that look that Kaz gives him before he says suffering, I was like, this dude is about to be unhinged. He is about to go all in, because the look on his face, I've never seen Kaz look like that before. He looked like, yeah, he was like, oh, okay, Pekka Rollins wants to, put a bounty on me. Okay, yeah, let's show him what this bounty is. Kaz is about to fuck him up.
Kaz about it.
Huh? He
Kaz is about it.
He is.
Yeah, especially with this, because because you gotta think about it like this. Pekka is really kind of is a big part of his origin story, and he hasn't really messed with him too tough like previously, because he's had his stuff and Pekka's had his stuff, and they just kind of kept that shit separate. It's like, whatever.
Yeah,
you
but
stay on your side.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has always been looking for an angle.
Probably, I wouldn't doubt it.
Kaz?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think
because he's gonna get his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I think what he was doing was he was staying out of Pekka's way until he was ready to make his move. Because again, like it was revealed in the last episode, when his brother introduced him to Pekka, he did use his correct first name. Now, Brecker is not Kaz's given name, but I would think that Kaz would be like, okay, just in case Pekka recognizes the name, remembers the name. And then when Pekka confronts him in the last season, and he looks at Pekka and he was like, have you and I met before? And Pekka was like, no, we haven't, because if we did, you would know better. That was when Kaz was like, okay, now's my time. I can just start planning this. And of course, when he comes back to Ketterdam and now Pekka's the owner of his club, that's when he was like, oh, okay, you know what? Now it's time to jump this shit off.
Exactly. Pekka took his baby, then named it after his baby. So he's like, oh, that's how we're going to play it? All right, bet.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing with Kaz we see in the beginning of the episode, after they all have met up at the cemetery, this is after the ambush by Pekka's people. Of course, Jesper is pissed off because Inej has been hurt. And he feels like Kaz is just putting them in danger because of his blood feud with Pekka, which, again, looking at the way that Jesper is looking at him, he doesn't know the full story. Like, he knows that there's something personal that Kaz has against Pekka. We heard that in last season, but I don't think he knows the full details. And I don't think anybody knows the full details until he says something to Inej in this episode. But when they're sitting there talking and Nina comes out and she's talking about Inej, the question was, is Inej okay? And she says, well, I'm not, by any means the best of healers, but she will not be a permanent resident here. And then Jesper says, not yet. Wyland comes in with this completely innocent anecdote about the cemetery and how they don't bury people there anymore because of the what was it, firepox? I think
firepox.
Because of the firepox epidemic that happened years back, so many people died that they couldn't bury them in the cemetery. They used to have to just put the bodies in sea. And then we see a flashback, the same flashback we've been seeing of Kaz on a barge of
dead bodies.
Yeah. And he loses it. And everybody's looking at him like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh, okay, so this is the thing that's affecting him. And then when you look at the other stuff that happens in this episode, especially with him and Inej, there are certain things that we've noticed about Kaz's demeanor, his behavior over the first season and into this season, that I think once you start seeing this part of his backstory, you can start putting things together. The fact that Kaz is almost always fully covered, except for his face. He always wears a hat. He always has gloves on. He always has long sleeves on, a cloak. He keeps himself very covered. The fact that when Inej takes her outer shirt off to tend to her wound on her arm, he looks away from her. And at first, I always thought that was just in deference to, like respect. But no, what you notice in this episode and in the episodes before, Kaz really does have an issue with flesh. And I think if you remember, I think there was one of the flashbacks from last episode, when he woke up on that barge with the dead people and was trying to get up, he's touching flesh. And I think that is the trauma, trigger for him. He doesn't like flesh. He's never like hand to hand. You've never seen him like voluntarily touch anyone. I think we mentioned that in the last episode. Yeah. So you start seeing all of these things and putting these things together. And like I said in the last episode, Kaz needs a therapist. He really does.
Well, it's more than a phobia. I mean, there's a phobia, and then there's actually a medical name for his condition. I forget what it is. I knew it last year, but I didn't look it up again. But it goes much deeper because it's something to the point where it's like if Pekka ever found out that is his thing, Pekka could basically kill him by just putting him in a room with a whole bunch of bodies. He would literally just, fade away from just sheer fear.
Yeah. I mean, you see what happened in the first episode when he and Jesper got arrested, and he was in the truck, and the person just kept touching him, and you could see him starting to have this full-blown panic attack. So it's like, if that person had touched his bare skin, how would he have reacted? I mean, just the fact that when he goes over to Inej and starts trying to take care of her wound, when he reaches out his hand for the cloth, I don't know if you noticed, you can see his hand trembling a little bit. Like, this is something that is so foreign to him, but he's willing to do it for Inej. Like, even this whole thing, when she tells him, she was like, look, you are putting us in danger, and I deserve to know why. That's the very least you can do. And when he hesitates to answer, she turns her back to him. In that moment, when he says, Pekka Rollins killed my brother, and she turns around and looks at him, I think she understands what a huge step that is for him, because Kaz Brekker is not a man for sharing confidences. He's not a man to sit here and give out his vulnerabilities. So the fact that he even trusted her with that much, and she didn't make a big deal of it. She didn't say, thank you for sharing me. She was just like, oh, okay, then we destroy him. And the fact that I feel like just because of that response, he felt like, okay, maybe I can get a little bit closer. Like, he was really putting himself out there. And I know she didn't do it on purpose, but I was like, Nina, you came in at the wrong time, because what was about to happen there?
Heart blocker. Oh, FYI, the intense overwhelming fear of being touched is called haphophobia.
That's what it was. Yes.
HAPHEPHOBIA.
Yeah.
Not as in like a whole phobia, like part of a whole phobia. It's not.
But I don't even know if it's just the fact that he doesn't want to be touched. Like, he can't even look at flesh. And I mean, if you think about,
considering what happens to him in the books, you can't blame him.
Right. I mean, Anthony, you're muted.
You literally
I think he was not looking at her because he wanted to touch her. Like, he probably had this overwhelming sense of wanting to touch her, but I don't think because if it was a fear of flesh, he wouldn't look at people. Like he just wouldn't look at their faces because their face is flesh. Mm-hmm. So he probably had an urge or desire to touch her. So he like freaked out.
Her specifically.
Yeah.
I think it's a mix of both though, but
I can understand it because if he has this reaction, maybe he doesn't want to have the reaction that he has when he touches regular people when he touches her, because he has such deep feelings for her. He doesn't want to be like, if he touches her bare skin, he doesn't want to like draw away and act repulsed by it. He wants to actually get over whatever fear he has and be able to touch her without feeling reviled.
Or to just be able to be close to her. Because again, if she doesn't know that he has that phobia or that fear, then she may interpret his reaction in a different way as well.
I think she does, though. I think she knows, because she if she pays as close attention to him as he does to her, mm-hmm. she knows. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she knows.
Right.
She's smart enough to realize what's going on.
Yeah.
She may not know why. She may not know exactly what it is, but she knows that he doesn't like to touch people, because that's why he wears gloves all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Jesper knows too. He's been with him long enough to know that he doesn't like to touch people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can't blame him. If I was the only alive person on a barge full of people dead from something called fire pots, and you just floating out in the middle of the sea, like, I don't want to touch nobody either. I don't blame him at all. Yeah. Like, that's disgusting. That's nasty.
Especially as a child having to go through that kind of trauma.
Yeah.
Where they thought you were dead too, so they threw you out with the rest of the bodies. Yeah.
And how long was he there? You don't know how long he was there or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think they ever said.
But Nina could probably hear and feel their hearts beating. It's probably why she's like, excuse me, guys. They're having, what is it called? They're having eye sex. She interrupted.
Well, yeah. And I guess she's probably like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this. So let me make my presence known. But
the thing is, the heart renderer, she can probably kind of ignore all the heartbeats. But if they get abnormally loud together, she's probably like, okay,
start speeding up a little bit.
A little bit too much for me.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Whoa. Okay, calm down, everybody.
Calm down. Hold your horses.
Your heart's beatboxing.
She don't know he don't like to touch people. So she's trying to stop it before it got out of hand.
Yeah. But the funny thing about all of this, watching the series, you notice how Kaz's facial expressions is. Like, he has never smiled. He's never given any kind of indication that he is happy. And I have spent much of the last 2 weeks watching all of the press tour, all of the interviews that they have given about Shadow and Bone season 2. And Freddie Carter cannot stop smiling in these interviews. It's so weird, because you look at him when he's Freddie and he's like smiling, he's like happy, he's making jokes, like he's really a very funny person. And then
he's entirely different than he is on the show.
Yes, because when you see him as Kaz, it's kind of like he does such a good job. You would think this guy has no joy about anything as Kaz Brecker. And I mean, he just does such an amazing job. But okay, we're going to move away from Kaz and the Crows just for a moment, because we do have to come back and talk about Jesper and Wylan, but we'll do that in a minute. So let's go talk about Alina and the Grisha and everything that's happening over there. So she has the scales from the Sea Whip. She is ready to go and try to get rid of the fold. She thinks she's strong enough, and she feels strong enough, and she thinks that she'll be ready for it. Now, when they're sitting there discussing it, she and Mal are talking about going on their own, and Sturmhond is like, no, I want to be part of this light show. I want to see it. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to need your help. We're going to need some parts or some whatever. He was like, nah, land travel is so boring. Alina's expression when he undocks the hummingbird and they take to the air, That was so hilarious because you think she's this big bad saint. She's a sun summoner. Okay. She has gathered enough like courage that she's like, oh, I have fought the Darkling. What's going to scare me? Being in the air.
Apparently small boat. Yeah, small boats decoupling from a bigger boat.
That's when she sat on that bench and she was looking, she was like, nope. Her expression was the funniest thing. And Mal is just like, Alina, you really have to come see this. She was like, no, I don't. He was like, yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Okay, so when I went to Key West one time and I was on a schooner. It's like it's just like a regular sailboat, and it's like they were like doing we were going on the quay, and it's like it is a big boat, and I was like, okay, it can't go that fast. This motherfucker was going at least 60, 70 miles an hour, and it was leaning where if you're sitting on a bench, like you're like the ocean and the quay and the boat, like from the edge, were like about that far from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, and Michelle's like, you okay? I'm like, mm-hmm. I was just like her. Like that literally reminded me of that because I had the death grip. I was like, oh God, I can't swim. I can't swim that well. I can't swim well enough. Like, oh fuck, I'm dead.
It was funny because Toya and Tamar were just looking at her amused. And Mal, of course, he's like, you have to come look at this. And he goes to grab her. Now, I will say this does speak to Alina's trust of Mal because she got up and went to that edge. So she knew Mal wasn't going to put her in a position where, something was going to harm her. And her expression when she opens her eyes and she sees that they're in the air and they're flying and it's beautiful. And she was like, oh my God, how is this? And I was like, that just sounds so weird to me because we're used to seeing airplanes. Like we've all been on airplanes. That's like nothing for us. But to think about a world where air flight is not a thing.
It's not a thing.
Not even, and it's not even, I don't even think this is considered like I was going to say primitive world, not a primitive world, but this is modern time. But to think about this being a world where air travel is not normal, like Sturmhond literally designed this aircraft, and it's probably the first thing to be in the air with people on it. I was like, oh, that's just kind of
and she kind of has like what's her name's like Ellie's reaction when she saw an airplane in The Last of Us. She was like, have you ever flown in one of those? It's like her sense of wonderment and all, like, I can't believe people were actually able to get up in the air like that. And it's like, I love Sturmhond's response. He's like, it's like you haven't even met me. Like, of course I can fly. I was like, this dude, man.
This dude.
Who I am. Like, I told you.
Actually, at this point, we don't really know who he is. Until later.
Soon to come, though.
But before we get to that part, so when they're in the fold, Alina tries to get rid of the fold. She uses her powers, and it looks like it's working for a moment. But what happens is she starts having a flashback of what happened on the skiff with Kirigan when he took control of her powers. And I don't know if she actually wasn't strong enough or if it was just a mental thing. Because now at this point, Kirigan is in her head, or she feels like Kirigan is in her head. And all she's remembering is when he was taking over her power, the last time she was trying to get rid of the fold. And now she can't do it. She passes out. The Volker come. You have the twins. You have the twins. You have Sturmhond. You have them all fighting for the Volker. Fighting the Volker while they're trying to get out of the fold safely, and they end up crash landing. So they crash land. Luckily, everybody is okay. Everybody survives, and the Ravkan army is coming up to the skiff because now they've illegally entered Ravka. So Sturmhond is basically like, I'll take care of this. And he starts taking his stuff off. And when he takes his jacket off, he has on the uniform of the First Army. And we find out that Sturmhond is actually Nikolai Lansoff, the second son of the king of Ravka. He's the prince. And I remember reading this reveal in the book because in the book it's a little bit different. Sturmhond in the book is kind of disfigured in the face. So you really can't recognize who he is. So it's like if anybody is familiar with who the prince is, which you would assume that people would know what their prince looks like, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case,
not always.
Not always,
not
but
always.
For the most part, you would assume that people would know who their first family is.
Not the second one. They might know what the first one looks like, not the second one. Because you think about this is neither here nor there, but the time period they're in, it's not like they got television, their pictures are drawings. So your average common person probably didn't really know, especially if you don't ever go to the capital and they're not coming around.
Yeah.
You're really not going to know what they look like. Especially, the minor ones like him. Yeah, I'm just saying, it's hard to assume they know what he looks like.
Yeah,
because like even even the general was like, "Wait, is that you?"
But he also hasn't been seen in several years,
right?
According to them. So, but in the book he is kind of disfigured, and then when they make the reveal, I think what he does is he takes his, I guess it's kind of like a face mask or something that's making him look extremely different. Because when he takes it off, he looks like a completely different person. So it's not like just Alina and Mal finding out, oh, this guy is the prince. Like in the book, he looked like a totally different person. But, we find out he's the prince.
Poor Nikolai. It's like nobody recognizes him. It's like Kaz and Jesper didn't recognize him, even when he gave him the strong profile. And it's like his own general didn't recognize him. It's like it does. You would think it would be terrible that to his ego, but no, it's still intact. Like still exactly where it was when he.
Because I think for him, just like he was telling Alina when they were on the horses headed for his sanctuary, in a way it makes it easier for him to do the things that he did. Like he told Alina, he was like, "Look, this makes it easy for me to help the people that I love." And when she looks at him, he doesn't say his family. He says, "My people, the people in my war-torn, ravished country." So he really is the royal who cares about his people, who cares about his country, and is really trying to do what needs to be done to save them. And that is one of the reasons why he was trying to get to Alina, the Sun Summoner. And he even admits to her that, he was the one who hired Kaz and the Crows to try to capture her in the first season. So the difference with Nikolai and the rest of his family, we learned in the first season, his family is not really, they're not really friendly towards Grisha like they are, because they're the royals and they have to put on that face, but they don't really like the Grisha. And what Nikolai finds out is that his brother Vasily is actually using the First Army to hunt down Grisha. And they're all, the royal family is starting to take shelter in the spinning wheel, which is where Nikolai has his labs, and that's where he creates his, his little hummingbirds and all the other things that he creates. But as he tells his general, he was like, "Oh, well, if they're heading there, they're not going to like the fact that I gave that to the Grisha as a sanctuary." So they actually are headed there to kind of, head the royal family off so that there's not an immediate bloodbath or whatever the case may be once they get there.
Right.
And, you see Nikolai talking to Alina, just basically like, "Look, I am not the type of person that my parents are, that my brother is. I really want for
we skipped her reaction. Her immediate reaction to finding out that he was the ruling king. She was like, "You mother crack,
you bastard," was actually what she said, which is very funny. I'll explain why in a future episode. But yeah, she punches him, and what is it? He says, "My jaw is in good shape. Thank you for asking." She was like, "You can just tell people that you were punched by a Volcra." Yeah, she was a little upset, understandably so. But like he said to her, he was like, "Look, I hid my identity to protect the people that I care about. I'm sure you understand." And when he says that, she turns around and she looks at Mal. She was like, "Okay, I can understand the whole hiding to protect. Yeah, okay, I got it." But yeah, so they get to the spinning wheel, and the first person who comes out is a recast Nadia, which threw me off just a little bit. But I will say this:
yeah,
I like the new actress a lot. In the role, she really does, I think, keep the same energy that the previous actress did with Nadia. I like her. We get to see Nadia's brother. I know Mike was happy and Anthony was happy to see Zoya.
Zoya's back.
Zoya's back.
Hey, girl.
Zoya is back. She is there because her family in Novosibirsk did not survive the extension of the fold. So now she has come to, offer her allyship to Alina, which I will say this. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I like it so far because in the books, even when they have met back up together, there's still this kind of like tug and pull as far as Zoya still kind of being not cordial to Alina. And in this exchange, when we see them, you do see that there's still a little bit of that there, but Zoya's demeanor is completely different. And she offers Alina advice, when Alina's like, "Is this an apology?" She was like, "You don't need hollowed apologies. You need an ally. And that's what I'm offering to you." She was like, "You're going to have to be able to defeat da 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 da. You're going to have to be able to do this." When Alina apologizes about her family, she was like, "Why? You had nothing to do with that. That was Kirigan. He was controlling you and he was making you feel like you needed him for such. You don't need that. You're the sun summoner." Basically, like, you're going to have to claim this power. You're going to have to claim, control over your narrative. And I'm going to be here to help you do that. I was like, okay, I can get with this. It's not I'm jealous of you, so I'm going to be your, I'm going to always be sitting there pushing at you and giving you a hard time. No, we don't have to like each other, but I'm here to be your ally. I'm here to help you. Okay. I can get with this version of Zoya.
Yeah, but I like Zoya, but I don't know if I trust her yet. I'm gonna need to see a little bit more from her.
You know what? I would have thought the same, and I did think the same in the book. I will say that, because in the book I was like, I don't know. But the fact that the Darkling extended the fold, killed your family, knew that you had family in that city, and still put you on that skiff anyway, in a position of command, and you had a very first world experience to seeing that city destroyed. I don't question it. She's pissed, and she has every right to be.
Right.
So I'm here for it. Zoya Alina team up? Yes. Sign me
it's
up.
like,
I'm here.
Plus two really strong-willed women who don't take shit from anybody, and it's like them together is definitely a plus. Mm-hmm. I think that it's like the way that they are, how strong they are mentally, and it can do nothing but like improve this show. It's like I wouldn't mind seeing more of them together. I wouldn't mind seeing like the three, her, Zoya, and Nina, like Alina, Zoya, and Nina, more as a trio, where they're just like really strong-willed, like
girls get it done.
Yeah, like girls get it done. Basically,
here we go again.
Hey, at least one of them doesn't have to be dropped off a cliff to keep the story going. Too soon? My bad.
This is true. This is
not
true.
Too soon.
So
it's not.
But yeah. So Nikolai is obviously going to be a big help to to Alina's fight going forward, because at this point they do realize that Kirigan has survived, or at least that they assume it because of the reports that they're getting about Grisha's being freed from enslavement camps, First Army camps being decimated, people being cut in half. When Nikolai said that, Alina was kind of like, I already know what this is.
Yeah.
I know we thought he was dead, but it has to be him because, like she said, nobody else can do the cut. She was like, Bagger, but this is Kirigan, because she doesn't think Bagger would do something like that.
She wouldn't.
But it's interesting because at this point, Nikolai makes a suggestion, or as he says, I have a proposal to make. He's like, so you're going to need some allies because, again, as he tells her, yes, he was the one that sent Cass and the crows after her. So really nobody is looking for her on that front. But the Fjerdan bounty is very much real. And they are offering money for her capture. And in his eyes, he says, okay, I can offer you the Lansoft name. That will let anybody know that we are in alliance with the Grisha, that we are protecting the Grisha, and it will give us a more unified front between Grisha and I cannot pronounce what they call the regular people. Oh, I'm not even going to try it. The regular folk. Okay. And so Mal is like, so what do you mean by your name? And Alina thinks that she was like, so this is like a proposal, not just a strategy proposal.
proposal.
And I mean, at least Nikolai, he was like, look, I know what you two mean to each other. I'm not proposing a love match. We may not even make it to marriage, but at least an engagement will give us some time to let everyone know, hey, we are together. We are trying to unify our people. And then he leads them to talk about it. Now, after this conversation, I was still sitting here like, I don't understand why people hate Mal so much, especially when it comes to Alina, because literally this man just in front of you, at least Nikolai didn't, he didn't do this with Alina and push Mal to the side and discuss this with Alina. He was like, no, I'm going to tell both of you because I know what you mean to each other. This is what I'm proposing. Yes, this is going to be an engagement. This is going to be a marriage. Y'all talk it out. And Mal literally sits there and tells her, this is your decision. I will support whatever you decide to do. If this is what's going to protect you, if it's what's going to save the Grisha, if it's what's going to help my friends who are in the First Army who are only following orders, the people who have fought next to me, if this is how we unify and how we save people, then we can do this. If I have to sit to the side and watch this happen, okay, whatever's going to keep everybody safe, whatever's going to help this cause, whatever's going to help you do what you need to do. He was like, you're a living saint. There's not much I can offer you in the way of protection, but this can help. Granted, yes, she did say, I'm not some pawn. And he was like, yeah, I get that. I'm surprised you didn't break his nose, when he proposed it, but this is your decision. I got your back, whatever you do. I still don't understand why people can't stand Mal with her. Like, this is literally a dude who is saying, you have agency. This is your decision. But whatever you decide, whether or not I like it or not, I'm going to support you.
They probably just think he's a simp. That he's just like,
yeah, I was going to say, that's the
whatever I'll do whatever you say. I don't like it, but you're you and I'm me. So I'll just go along with it. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think he's a simp. I got to be honest. He just irks me for some reason, and it's not because he's a simp. It's just because I feel like a lot of times he's just a device that the writer uses because he gets beat up all the time. Then he finds you. Then he gets beat up again. Then he finds you. Then it's like he's always like that person that kind of like is always like coming back battered but brave, and he saves the day. And Alina gives them that old starry look in their eyes, and it's like, I don't know, but I don't
what's the
necessarily.
alternative? You have a good looking, tough, powerful person who takes away a woman's agency, who controls her, who only wants to be with her because of what she can provide for him. I mean,
I get that. I'm not saying that he like again. I'm not saying he's a simp. I'm just saying that that's what people see when they see how he acts around her, and it's like that's not really fair because before he even really had feelings for her, they were friends. They were tight as thieves. It's like they were literally there for each other at every turn. When one of them needed something, the other one had it, and vice versa. This is before she was even a sun summoner. So this is like a deeper level of friendship than people really imagine. I think that people just see him as being a sim, but I just see it as the level of friendship that they've cultivated from knowing each other basically all their lives. All of their mental knowing lives, they've known each other, and that's what this relationship is, and people just don't really get it.
And I guess that's the thing that bothers me, because before there was even a romantic relationship, they were best friends.
Right.
And people were mad because they were like,
more than best friends.
She was there the whole time, and it took you forever to realize that you loved her, and blah 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 blah. Like I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like him as a character, he can't please people, because first y'all are mad because he wasn't looking at her in a romantic way, and now that he is, y'all are mad because he didn't do it soon enough, or because you feel like it's taken away from her story, or I don't know. It just bothers me, because I'm like, Mal is one of those characters who people don't really write characters like him. You know, when it comes to a male character with a female character who are best friends, who do fall in love, and he allows her to be her own person without invoking his own need. Like he doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to validate her. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't need him to be validated. She doesn't need him to be powerful. And I think that's one of the things about Alina's journey in the second season, is because for so much of the first season, Kirigan gaslit her, to the point where he was like, yeah, we can't, we have to do this together. Basically making her feel like it had to be the two of them against the world in order to take care of the fold, in order to, banish the fold, in order to reunite Ravka. And she's still kind of in that mindset where everything that he has told her is still there, to the point where she couldn't even do what she needed to do in the fold. I think if she hadn't have had that flashback, she probably could have destroyed the fold, or at least part of it, enough for her to feel confident in herself. But now she's just kind of like, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. And I just don't know. I just don't see the problem with having someone say, you can do this on your own. You don't need me. You don't need anyone else. You can do this. I have faith in you. I know you can do it. I don't understand what the problem is.
No, it's not a problem. It's just how people see relationships these days. It's like they figure that if there's a man and a woman, there has to be a romantic thing between them, and it really doesn't. It's like they're friends. It's like they don't need the romantic thing. Was totally optional between the two of them, because they already had a stronger bond than physical love or physical attraction. It's like they like I said, they literally have a bond that they've cultivated through knowing each other most of their lives. Mm-hmm. So it's like they don't need that kind of relationship. It's like, because they already have a strong relationship.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I do like the fact, though, that Nikolai showed him that respect, to be like, hey, okay, so this is my plan, and I'm telling both of you at the same time, as opposed to going and telling Alina and then leaving it for Alina to go tell Mal, At least he had
but respect. I mean, it's like he didn't want to risk pissing Alina off. He knows that he's not dumb. He sees how Alina and Mal feel about each other. He's not going to risk alienating Alina by talking more shit about Mal. Like he's already kind of dismissed him a couple times, but he's actually come around and is actually giving him more respect now than he was when he first got on his ship. Mm-hmm. So he's come around and knows that wherever Alina goes, Mal goes. So that's not a big problem. It's like, fine, okay, cool. I'll give him the respect because he obviously has her respect, so I'm going to give him respect too. Mm-hmm. So there has to be something there.
Yeah. But we'll see what they're gonna do. But I mean, at least Alina is aware now that Kirigan is alive, and as we see with Kirigan, he's back in. I do believe that house is the old house that they were in last season when we looked at the Darklings backstory. I believe that may be the same house. It does look a bit worn down, or it may just be another safe house that they had. But so what they're doing is, again, they mentioned that Grisha who are being found are being brought there. Jenya is outside while new Grisha are coming in, and she happens to see David. So David is safe, and she goes up to him and she was like, you have to leave. You have to go before he sees you. It isn't safe here. He's got these shadow monsters, and David grabs her and he was like, shh, because the Darkling was coming up behind them. So of course now he's seen David. He's telling David a little bit about the
Nichevoya.
Yeah, Nichevoya. And just telling him about the symptoms that he's having when they come out. And he wants David to figure it out and see how he can help him. And he gives him Morizova's journal. So of course, David is in there. He's trying to figure this thing out. I think the other guy is Viadem. He's the other Duras that was working with Kirigan while David was gone. But they're both working in the same room where Bagra is being kept hostage. And Kirigan at some point realizes that they're going to have to go look for the Firebird, or meaning Alina and Mal, or Alina is going to have to look for the Firebird because he gets a report about there being a light show in the fold. So he's like, oh, okay. So Alina has the second she does have the second amplifier. She tried to destroy the fold. She can't do it by herself. So what is she going to do? If she's not going to come to me, she's going to go look for the Firebird. So he goes to Bagra to try to get information from Bagra about the Firebird. And Bagra is like,
she's not here for his shit.
She is not. She is not. She keeps berating him. She keeps being condescending to him. You stupid boy. You could have had her love if you weren't trying to control her. It's
like, I really fucked up raising you.
Right. And I was going to say, that's the interesting thing, because when he goes in to talk to her, he was like, at one point, you and I were on the same page. We wanted to create a better world for the Grisha. You taught me everything you knew. And what she said to him was, I taught you the best way that I knew how. But he also made the statement. He was like, what happened to the woman who would burn down villages to save her child? And I was like, oh, so yeah, Bagra probably was not mother. Well, I won't say she's not mother of the year, but because they're Grisha and because of the type of Grisha they are, who can create these shadow monsters, or the shadow, they control the shadows. They can both do the cut. If people were coming after Alexander as a kid, I imagine that Bagra was probably like, Molly Weasley, not my son, you bitch. And she probably did kill some people trying to protect her child. And if that was the way he was raised, I can see why he might have some of the issues he has.
Because she's like, he said, I learned everything from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. From you, all right. I learned it by watching you.
He did say what happened. He said, "You taught me everything you knew," or what did he say?
I learned everything at your knee, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And also the thing about what happened to the woman who would burn down villages. You told us that this was how we survived, and she said something like, "My perspective has changed over time."
Yeah,
meaning that whatever it was that she was doing, whether she was killing the regular folk or killing people to save her child, at some point she realized this is not the way. But it was too late for him because he was already so deep into that. And then, I mean, even in the last season when we saw that flashback episode, you saw that there was an affection between them. He still cared about his mother, but she was also telling him, "You can't do this. You can't use Morzos. You can't be this person because it'll corrupt you. It'll make things different." And he went against that anyway. And I feel like that's probably when that divide started happening, because maybe at that point she had already started changing her mindset about how they needed to move forward. But just like she tells him, she was like, "Hundreds of years, and you've literally put us back in the same place where we started. They're hunting the Grisha again. They're killing us indiscriminately just because we're Grisha." And that was the whole thing that, they were trying to avoid. But she refuses to tell him anything about the Firebird. And he sits here, he was like, "Okay, so you're not going to tell me? That's fine. I only need one thing from you anyway." He grabs a pair of scissors off of David's desk, and David is just sitting there looking like, what is he about to do? He goes to the cage and grabs Bagra, pulls her hand out, and he cuts off her pinky finger.
Yeah. Man.
Really?
Because if you think about it, Morozova, when he created amplifiers, he used what? He used his bones. He used his finger bones. And when he tells Viadem, he was like, Morozova used his bones to create amplifiers. Do something with this. And he throws the pinky into a dish on the table. Viadem is just looking at it like, okay, whatever. David, if you look at his expression, David was like, "This is not what the fuck I signed up for at all."
Like, nah. He wouldn't go. He was like, "Yo, we gotta go now."
He goes to Genia's room. He was like, "He just cut off Bagra's finger. We have to go." I think that's the most animated I've seen David, because he was like, "Yeah, no, we have to go. We can't stay here for this." Yeah, and Genia's like, "We have to warn Alina," because he tells her, he was like, "Oh, also Alina is alive because she tried to destroy the fold and so people saw her." And Genia was like, "We have to go find her and we have to go warn her about his shadow monsters." And David was like, "What we did to her was unforgivable." She was like, "But we have to go warn her. At least if we don't try, then we will feel worse. It'll be worse." Yeah. So at least she's like, "Okay, look, we got to go find her. You go to the ruins. There's some ruins over here. I will find you and we'll escape." Now, I think I don't remember if it was Anthony or if it was Mike. Somebody sent me something in a chat and they was like, "Why did Genia think she was just going to be able to get up and leave? Like he wasn't paying attention to her." And
okay, you leave when he sleep, okay? It's obviously she doesn't have sneaking out of the castle training. I'm just saying.
No, neither one of them is. He doesn't. No, he probably doesn't sleep. But it's like you still not getting past them, especially her, because she's the one that said, he specifically said he's keeping her close by because he needs her powers to help him heal all the scratch marks on him. So he needs her more than probably anyone else around there. So of course he's going to be like, "Where the fuck is she?"
Right. I felt so bad. I mean, her face, just her face. And then you just hear the screams. And I was like, oh God.
Because she tried to shoot him.
Yeah.
And the Nichevoya was there. And I was just like, when he found her, she's telling David to run. And David is sitting there hiding. And I know there's going to be people who talk about this whenever what happens in the next episode happens. Because when she was sitting there trying to distract the Darkling, and when she was being attacked, David didn't do anything. But I'm like, what should he?
What's he gonna do?
Can't do anything.
Yeah, he can't do anything.
He gonna build a flashlight and like flash him away?
No. Yeah, he's definitely not a fighter. You know, and David is one of those people where the way that he walks, the way that he reacts, and when he looks at things, he looks like he's scared of his own shadow. And I know part of that probably has to do with whatever happened the weeks they were on the road, you know, trying to survive, trying to hide from First Army, whatever. Again, he's not a fighter. He is there for his analytical mind. That's what makes him valuable to the Darkling. So what would have happened if he had gotten caught? He wouldn't have been able to help Jenya. He wouldn't be able to warn Alina. He wouldn't be able to do anything. But I just feel bad because he's probably going to feel some kind of guilt over whatever happens to Jenya. We know she's not dead because later on in the episode, Kirigan tells I can't remember the girl's name, the second in command, the type maker. But he says when she wakes up, we're going to show her to everyone else so they can see what happens when you're disloyal. I was like, oh, I'm just waiting to see what that looks like, because in the books, supposedly, like, they disfigured Jenya to the point where she was unrecognizable. So I'm like, oh, how are they going to do this in the show? We're going to see that in the next episode, I think.
It'll be ironic if they make her face look like Jigsaw made her face a Jigsaw.
They're going to have to, I don't know, they're going to have to do something. But yeah, so she doesn't make it out. David, we see he runs because Kirigan sends his Nichevoyets, to him, go find our Mr. Costa. David's like, nope, I'm getting the fuck on. So hopefully he has escaped. Hopefully they didn't catch him. But what we do find out is that when he ran, he took Morozova's journal with him. I was like, yeah. Kirigan was a little bit pissed off about that.
A little bit.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. But what he does is
I have beef. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So when they were running towards the ruins, David sees Jenya. Jenya, he's like, come on. She runs out in the middle of the fucking path, visible to everybody. I mean, she didn't even give herself a chance to get somewhere where she could hide. I'm like, that's
it really wasn't anywhere for her to hide unless she had gotten a little bit further up to where David was, and Kirigan was on a horse, so she would not have been able to make that.
Yeah, it just kind of irritated me. Like, he came right out of the tall grass and was like, "Yo, what you doing?" I was like, "Oh God." I'm surprised he didn't see David right there, because he was like standing out, being like, come on. Then it's like, as soon as he came out of grass, he was like, oh shit, tried to hide. I'm like,
I think the angle of the wall was probably a little bit different, because Kirigan's voice carried before you actually saw him come around the corner, because he was like, Jenya, stand before me. What is the meaning of this? And when she says to him, he was like, I saved you from near death, and this is how you repay me. And what she said to him was, I should be your biggest shame. Just let me go. And, it's so interesting because later on, he was like, I really had an affinity for her. And I was like, dude, somebody needs to teach you that the ways that you think are like the ways you think about women, how affectionate you are towards them or how much you care about them, the ways that you display that don't match. Like something about giving a 12-year-old to the king for his sexual pleasure, that does not show an affinity towards a person. You sitting here being all heartbroken and everything about your little saint not loving you back the way you want her to love you, because you tried controlling her, and you like, somebody needs to teach him that his words and his actions don't match. I don't know. But I mean, what Jenya said to him, that should have bothered him. I feel like if you really have an affinity for this person, the fact that she's telling you I should be your biggest shame, something about that should have bothered you. But you were more upset about the fact that she tried to abandon you. All she wanted to do was just let me go. Just let me go. You already see I can't heal you. I can't do anything for you. Just let me go.
He can't because she's Grisha, and all Grisha belong to him. So
again, the whole I know.
I mean, it's as simple as that. Everything he does is to protect the Grisha. Everything he does is to make sure they're okay.
Right.
They're safe from the whatever regular people.
Yeah. But the other thing with that is, once he has this little temper tantrum about the journal being gone, he takes a look at his hand and that little piece of the stag's antler, and he kind of sits there. He closes his eyes and he goes into that space where he and Alina can actually see each other. And did I not say this in the last episode where I was like, I hope he doesn't use that knowledge to be like all creepy and watch her while she sleeps. And that's literally what happens. He appears in her bedroom, even though, again, I don't know if he realizes that this is actually what he's seeing or if this is just a figment of his imagination. But she's asleep. He goes over to her in the bed and he's just kind of like talking to her sleeping form about, oh, okay, so you got the Firebird. I mean, you got the Sea Whip. You tried to destroy the foe. You can't do this without me. That's okay. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna wait for you. And he takes his, he licks his finger and he puts out the candle next to her bed. And then she wakes up. And she doesn't notice anything is amiss, but that's when she wakes up and she goes to Nikolai's room and she tells him that she's made a decision. Now, that's where the episode cut off, so I know that she's probably told him, okay, yes, I'll accept your proposal. So that's going to be a whole interesting thing. But this whole thing with the Darkling and this connection with them is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem, especially once she realizes that this is actually, like, she still doesn't know for sure. Well, okay, let me not say that. She knows that he is alive just because of the rumors that she's heard about what's been happening with the Grisha camps and the First Army camps. But I think it's one thing to think that, but once she's confronted with the reality, whether that is she actually comes face to face with him, or she realizes that these visions she's having of him is real, I don't know how she's gonna take that, because it's already bad enough that he's in her thoughts to the point where she can't do what she needed to do to get rid of the foe. But now this person is actually physically alive and has a real physical connection. And he was even trying to get David to figure that out. And David was like, well, the bridge I built between you two, that's never been done before. So I don't know what kind of residual effects it could have. Even though you have a piece of the bone in you still, we don't know what can happen. But, David's gone now, so he's not going to be able to figure that out anyway.
Right.
But the other thing, going back to the crows, has sends Jesper and Wylan to Applebrook, which is another town, because supposedly Pekka Rollins has a glass factory there. And Kaz knows that this can't be the case because there are no sand pits in that area. So when Jesper and Wylan get there, they realize it's like a country estate. And of course, they have to go in to see what the guards are guarding. And that's when they find out that Pekka Rollins has a son. Young son, looks like he might be about 6 or 7.
Who are you?
That little kid was funny.
This little motherfucker is spoiled and is trouble. Like as soon as I saw, I was like, no, this little motherfucker is going to be an issue.
He wasn't an issue in the usual. It was so funny because they get caught being in the house first by Albie, which is Pekka Rollins' son, then by the nanny, and then the nanny calls, I guess, one of the guards. And Wyland is quick on his feet because Jesper looks like he's about to shoot. I'm like, y'all don't need a shootout in this house. That's going to put everything. No, we don't need to do this. So Wyland is like, he has all of his little tools. He's like, yeah, so we're here to fix the piano because the piano very visibly has a key that's not working properly. So they go over to the piano and they realize somebody has cut one of the wires. And Jesper looks at Albie. He was like, did you cut this? And the nanny, she's so funny. She was like, what kind of accusation? He's a child. And Jesper's looking like, I know he's a child. That's why I'm asking him.
So badass.
And the kid's like, hell yeah, I cut that shit.
Yeah, I cut it. I hate piano.
I hate the piano. Yeah.
And so the nanny is like, well, if it's a cut wire, that means you guys can fix it, right? And Wyland turns to Jesper. He was like, we can't fix it. We don't have the pieces. And Jesper's like, okay. So Wyland goes over to the side. Jesper uses his Duras powers and he repairs the wire. And then the little boy, he was like, yeah, I think it works. And Albie goes over to the computer. He was like, let me try. He just starts just banging. I was like, if this kid has taken a lesson in his life, you can't tell it. He just like nothing.
Actually, I think he kind of hit an E flat minor chord in one of those little poundings. Just like it kind of sounded like Jill Scott. Like you're like,
no, he did not. Don't even lie. Don't even lie. No.
Why you even put that shit out in the world?
He didn't. And then Wyland, they're trying to be all nice. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's a pretty good player. And Wyland is like, yeah, so if you practice a little more, you can probably do something like this. And he plays a little piece on the piano, which Jack Wolf, the guy who actually who plays Wyland, he actually did compose that little piece. They asked him to, compose something for the show, and that's what he did. So that was his little original ditty. And as he's playing it, Jesper is falling in love. You can just tell. He's just looking at him like, oh, shut up, Anthony. Don't you be rolling your eyes, whatever. I mean, leave him alone.
It was giving a little bit of Last of Us episode 3, like with Frank and Bill a little bit.
Yeah, yes.
Just give me that a little bit.
Yes, but that's okay. Jesper is like, okay, this is interesting. And he finishes playing and he looks up at Jesper. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, okay, so this is the beginning of the beautiful stuff here. But yeah, so
whatever.
Shut up.
Look, man, let love rule. Great Lenny Kravitz once said, let love rule. Let them have that, all right?
But anyway, so like we said at the beginning, you have Kaz, who now knows that Pekka has a son. I'm hoping Kaz is not going to be as destructive as to punish this little boy for being Pekka Rollins' son, but I have a feeling he's about to figure in whatever plan that that Kaz has against Pekka. The other thing that happened in this episode is that Kaz told Nina about the fights at Hellgate, and he was like, "Look, there's all the guards there are under Pekka's, payroll." Except for one, or rather, there's one who is not as loyal because I have something on him that that he would not want. That he would not Pekka. Why can I not get this out? That he would not want Pekka Rollins to know. So Nina goes to Hellgate to try to talk to this guard, but there's some fights about to happen. And before the fights happen, when we see Matthias and his roommate, they're cleaning out cells because they do these fights where I think one person was fighting a bear. Was that this episode? Yeah, I think somebody was fighting a bear or something.
It was a boar.
And Matthias sees some wolves that are being locked up, and he makes it known. He was like, look, this is not what jail would want. And then that's when the guy was like, oh, hold up, you're Druskella? Yeah, you might want to keep that to yourself, buddy. And right at that time, the guards are looking for somebody else to fight. So of course they look at Matthias's big ass size and they're like, oh, we're going to put him in this. So they put him in the ring to fight. He's in the ring with a cannibal. Now, we talked about this when we were talking about The Last of Us, and Mike actually Googled like what happens to people who are cannibals, like if they ingest human flesh for long enough. I think this guy is what happens, because his teeth were sharp, his ears were unusually long. He just looked a little animalistic.
He didn't look right.
He didn't look right at all.
Right.
So this is the person that they put Matthias in the cell with to do this fight. And Nina happens to be walking by, and she realizes Matthias is in this cell. Now, here's my question. Now, you see Matthias is in the cell. You see Pekka Rollins is actually in the audience. And that's what the guard tells her when she finds him. She was like, look, I need you to get a message to, the Fjordan. And he was like, I can't do it now. They're about to fight. Pekka Rollins is here. Find me after the fight. But she sees that Matthias is in there fighting, and she watches the fight. And eventually Matthias, he is the victor in this fight. And when he's walking out, she tries to call his name. And I think she calls his name 5 or 6 times. And then the last time he hears her, he turns and he looks at her, and she smiles at him. And then he just walks off. So I was like, I don't know if he saw her and thought that he was seeing things, or if he saw her and thought she was there to look at the fight. It's like, because
he saw her. He saw her.
I'm saying, he still, in his mind, thinks that she put him there on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, there's shit he can do. It's like, okay, he sees her, it's like, oh, it's you. What's he gonna do? He can't go over there and give her a hug. He can't he can't go talk to her. He can't do shit. He in jail.
But that
he can't do a damn
give
thing.
Her a hug. I don't think if he maybe wants to choke her out, but he does not want to give her a hug. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's like, I just think that I still think there was something there. So I mean, he probably did have conflicting,
but he's still mad more than anything.
He probably had conflicting. He probably had conflicting feelings. But again, what was he gonna do? He's going right back to his fucking cell. Like, he just beat somebody up. He's going back to his cell. He can't go over there and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Okay, or he can't even go over and be like, "Fuck you, I don't want to talk to you." It's like, he can't do none of that. He got to keep going, or he's gonna face consequences. He's got to take his ass right back to Hellgate. Oh.
And unfortunately,
that's all he has.
Yeah, and unfortunately, her presence there has been noticed now by Pekka Rollins. I mean, Cass told her at the beginning, he was like, what you did tonight makes you a crow. You need to lay low. So laying low does people would notice
if a heart render's just walking along cage lines, screaming out someone's name, like Matthias, 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 Matthias. I'm like, really? You couldn't do anything? I mean, she was like pretty obvious about who she was trying to get their attention. Like, she was obvious.
I mean, she's in the middle of a screaming crowd, so she probably thought nobody was paying attention to her. But I'm sure Pekka Rollins at some point noticed her down there on the floor and was like, "Oh, let me go handle this," because again, she just attacked him the night before. Now here's Pekka Rollins' question. Go ahead.
Pekka Rollins didn't get to where he was by not paying attention to things that are out of the ordinary.
Oh, like,
yeah. He got to where he was by noticing when things are off, because when things are off, bad shit happens. Either someone tries to kill you or someone around you gets killed. You have to pay attention. That's the reason that he got to where he is, because he notices anomalies, and anomalies are bad. Right. There's no such thing as a good anomaly as far as he's concerned, because that's something that can get him away from where he is. So of course he's going to notice. It's like, that's just him.
So I guess the question I have is, Nina, if you are in there and you see what's going on with your man, why not use some of your heart-rending powers, at least to disable the cannibal a little bit?
Because she got to move her hands. She stands out too much. And then people people got money on that fight.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah.
That would be a problem.
Yeah.
Right. If they see her doing her little thing, like heart render shit, and it's like, hold the fuck up. I got 1,000 whatever the fuck's on this shit. And you over here doing your little jitsu shit. No.
Trust me, any Grisha in there is not going to interfere in that fight.
Yeah. No. But it doesn't matter now because, like I said, Pekka Rollins has seen her. He finds her and he was like, yeah, so it's cool to see a heart render who knows a new fighter by name. And he was like, yeah, so I would assume that, you know, you might be one of those women who might want to do something in order to keep her man out of harm's way. And she looks and she was like, what's your price? And he was like, you bring Kaz Brekker to me, or else I'll make sure that your Fjerdin, his next fight is his last.
Good death.
So.
Okay. First of all, have you seen how big Mateus is? And he's a trained fighter. I would have blew him off because, quite honestly, I'd be more concerned about Mateus killing whoever they put in against him.
Well, you see, at first, the cannibal was beating him up, and he was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm sure
he wasn't fighting back. Worse. Like, his big redwood ass he was like, man, I ain't about all this, like whatever.
Right. Yeah, but you saw what he did though. When he grabbed the guy, he did. Now, most people when they're fighting for their lives, they're desperate. They fight, any type of way, haymakers, whatever. What did Mateus do? Mateus broke his leg. Okay, that's a very deliberate act, and that's thought. And
Matthias was not trying to be somebody's lunch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the
after
same
those
time,
first few hits, he was like, you know what, this might be real. Like I think he was still getting over the shock of being in there.
Right.
And once he kind of looked at him, and was like, okay, this motherfucker ain't shit. Let me just put him down real
quick.
Right. Which is the leg breaking, which like I said, so if Pekka Rollins would have said that to me, I probably would have been like, you know what? No, I'm going to pass because I wouldn't be concerned about Mateus being able to defend himself.
But I mean, she doesn't know what else is going on in there. Like, okay, yeah, he got thrown in there for that fight. She doesn't know what type of opponents are there. This is a place called Hellgate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Arguably, it's probably holding the worst of the worst. And Matthias, we see, Matthias, he was Druskella. But even from when they were on the boat and she was shackled, he was still trying to protect her. He was making sure that she had food. He was, when the people were upstairs being rowdy, he came downstairs to make sure that no one would come down there and mess with the Grisha women. So he doesn't seem like he's that type of person where he's going to be amongst the worst of the worst. He's there simply because she was trying to save his life. And she told him he was a slaver.
Slaver, yeah.
But he's not a violent person in that sense, not that we've seen. She doesn't know what other type of people are in there, what he would be put up against. And like we said, somebody was fighting a bear. So who knows what else they would have in there. So I can kind of understand her being like, okay, I'll make this deal just to make sure he's going to be safe. But again, we have to think that, I mean, Nina used to work for the Darkling. She probably knows that Pekka is full of shit. But right now she doesn't have any other choice, because what else could they do? He could have done something to her if she didn't agree to that. Oh, okay, well, you're not going to agree to that. Oh, okay, well, let's do this. Let's do it.
Well, I'm pretty sure that a heart render is pretty hard to take out.
Well, right now they have her captive, and they've got two people holding her arms, so there's not much she can do.
Well, I mean, she did kick that one guy in the breadbasket, so I mean, I'm saying is she can fight.
Her renders have two big weaknesses. They have to use their hands with all Grisha. They have to use their hands, but the heart renders have to have line of sight.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
So those are two big weaknesses for them.
Right. So I guess we'll see how that's going to play now that she has to bring Kaz to Pekka. I don't know. Okay, so I guess the only other thing we really need to talk about is this fight between Inej and the taxidermist. Because I mentioned it earlier. Yeah. It really was. But like I said earlier, Inej, you see such a difference between her from last season and this season. Last season, she really didn't want to fight people because, especially if there was a chance that she would have to kill somebody or hurt somebody, because it was just kind of against her faith. And now I'm not saying that she's doing it willingly, but after that last encounter, she was basically like, I'm going to have to finish him or else he's going to finish me, or he's going to put me back in a menagerie. And she was like, I'm not going back to that place.
It's definitely much easier
any
for her
circumstances. So
it's way easier for her to kill people now than it was before.
I don't know if I would say it's easier. I just think she was in a point where she was like, okay, either I get rid of him or he's going to put me back in the menagerie. And she has said many times, she will not go back there. She will not go back there, especially if you think about what Pekka Rollins said to Kaz about, oh yeah, I'm going to get her and I'm going to put her back in the menagerie and I'm going to lock her up in the cellar. And no. And there's no telling what kind of depravities he would subject her to simply because she's a member of Kaz's crew. So yeah, I don't think it was easy for her. I think it was more so a survival decision. Okay, yeah. I can either kill him, because I think if she had left him the way that she, when she delivered that final kick and he impaled himself on that antler, she could have left him alive. I think he would have still come after her. And I think she was just to the point where she was like, I'm not about to keep doing this. Like, him damaging her in the last episode by cutting her arms, I think that's really the most, aside from the last season when she got I think, was she stabbed or I think she got impaled or something, but we don't really see Inej get hurt too often. So the fact that he got that close to her and was able to like literally bind her and make those cuts, I think she was like, no, I'm not about to do this anymore. Because again, this guy was doing this for sport. He was getting pleasure out of hurting her. And I think Inej was like, absolutely not. I'm not about to give any man the satisfaction of gaining pleasure over hurting me ever again. I mean, she had her new knives. She went in there ready to fight. And, you can hear the kind of the voiceover with Cass talking to her, because in the scene where they were together earlier, where he was helping her clean her wound, he was telling her what weaknesses to look out for, for this dude. And
you have to find his weakness.
Mm-hmm, you have to find his weak spots, his weaknesses. And then, when she was asking him like, well, what are my weaknesses? Do I have one? And he was telling her again how observant he is. Okay, so you do this. You put your pressure on your back leg when you get ready to lunge. Like, look for those types of things. And they tell you this different things, like, when someone gets ready to do a punch, they might move a certain way before they throw that punch, all these kinds of things. So one of the things that we hear in this voiceover is he was like, look for something that hurts him. And she was like, he feels no pain. He said, but that's a weakness in itself, because he won't know how hurt he is until you deliver that final blow. And as you see, while she's fighting him, even when he's getting the best of her, she's cutting him here. She's stabbed him, she's thrown the knives and stabbed him here, or she's delivering all these little cuts. And then when she makes that last move and she slides under his legs and she turns around, and I was just like,
not the hamstrings.
Not his femoral artery is
right
cut,
and he still didn't feel the pain. He just could tell that he could just tell that he couldn't really, like, he couldn't stand. He was he was damaged.
Yeah, she cut his hamstrings. It's like, I'm surprised he was still able to kind of stand.
No, she cut his femoral artery. She wasn't cutting his hamstrings.
But looks like what she cut, like behind his knee. Isn't that your hamstring?
No, that was the artery.
Yeah, hamstring a little bit higher.
Yeah, she got the artery.
But I found it interesting because, of course, he was telling her at the beginning. He was like, "That's okay. I know all the places to cut." And she came up and she was like, "You know all the places to cut." And the way that they did this, because she says this and then they give the slow-mo when she gets up, and I was like, oh, she's about to deliver the fatality. She's about to deliver something, because the way she just kind of stood up and she was looking, I was like, yeah, she's letting him know, you ain't about to catch me. She was like, I know all the places to cut too. And she turns around and does that roundhouse kick and she impales him on that artery. And then she walks over with the blade and it has Sancta Alina on it. He was like, and what would your saint, feel about what you're doing or whatever? She was like, I'm the one that's in control of what happens here. And she goes ahead and she kills him. I was like, yeah, y'all done unleashed a beast in this girl now. Because now that she's had to kill, what she did in the last season, now she's like, okay, if it's a matter of survival or killing, I'm going to survive. And y'all are not about to put baby in a corner. She was like, y'all are not about to chain me in no, absolutely not. And I'm like, I'm here for it. I like this version of Inej. Inej is like, I'm not taking no bullshit from y'all. I'm not about to let anybody ever be in control of me and my body again. And if you try, I'm just going to have to murk your ass. Okay. I'm here for it. But I like what we have seen from the Crows this season so far. I mean, we're 3 episodes in, and again, we've seen a lot more character development for them. You've seen some surprising things with them. Like I said, Inej now has no, I won't say she has no reserves about killing, but she's not as hesitant about it like she was last season. Again, if it's survive or kill, she's going to survive. Kaz, with the secret ass-kicking skills, I'm here for it. Jesper with his gunslinger. I'm just, this is becoming the best version of the Crows that I have seen, and I'm here for it. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that I have a feeling that Pekka Rollins is about to meet his match, especially since he kind of sort of revealed his cards in the last episode. Like, oh, okay, so I figured out that you were going to come here because I know how you think, and you already blew up the Crows Club. I knew you weren't going to do this, that, and the other, so I figured you'd be here. Oh, now that Kaz knows that you're trying to figure him out, what is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Kaz is not about to be fooled a second time. I think Pekka Rollins has met his match, and I'm ready to see what Kaz is about to do. Kaz is like, I found another way to get to him. Suffering. I was like, oh, what is he about to do? What is he about to do? Just don't hurt the little boy. The little boy is a little terror, but he like what did Jesper say? He said he was a right demon, but he was okay. I mean, at least he wasn't one of those kids. He wasn't the screaming type. He wasn't he was just a little boy who didn't like to play piano. He was like, I cut the string because
he wasn't even whining or anything.
I hate piano.
No.
He was like, I cut the string. Like,
he walked in and saw them, and he was just like, and who are you? That was it. It wasn't do any of that stuff. He was just a cute little 7-year-old who was like, why are you in my house? Oh, you come to fix the piano? Damn.
So y'all trying to get out of this shit.
Right. Wyland was like, this string's been cut. That is too clean. But I think it was interesting when Jesper told the nanny, he was like, whoever whoever cut this string, or talking about Alvin, he was like, he cut it with a sharp object. Like, he was telling the nanny, I need you to pay attention to what this little kid does, because he had a sharp object. There's no telling what he had and what he's doing with it, but you need to pay more attention to your charge, ma'am.
Look at Jesper being all self-conscious about the kid and stuff. Such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He is a nice guy. That's why he's one of the best characters. He's one of the best characters in here. Just like you found out. See, I'm happy. Again, this is growth. So proud of you.
As long as we keep the snark to a minimum, we're good.
Just for snark.
Don't even waste your time. Don't even waste your time, Monica. Don't even waste your time. It's fine. We'll get back to it in future episodes. Don't even waste your time right now. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's okay. That's okay. The one thing I was thinking about in this episode, when we found out that Sturmhond was the prince, I was like, how did that king and that queen have a prince that's this charming and this friendly and this accepting of the Grisha? How did that child come from those parents?
It's almost like he's adopted.
He's the spare. No one pays attention to the spare. They let them do whatever they want to do, because the one kid's the one that they're focused on trying to influence and raise and get ready for the throne. He's never expected to take the crown. So they basically,
it's kind of like Prince William and Prince Harry.
Yeah, pretty much.
But here's the thing. This is, and I'm glad you brought up William and Harry, because here's the thing. So you ever notice that it's the ones that people deem are not the important ones that are the ones that come and fuck your whole thing up, because they literally have been left alone to their own devices, and they're not being brought up in the same way as the first in line. So they're the ones that are more accepting of people. They're the ones that are more tolerant. They're the ones who are not as narrow-minded. Like, I really feel like Nikolai is about to come and fuck some shit up. Like, oh yeah, the parents and the brother were about to head to the spinning wheel. Yeah, and he's the one that's been using his army to kill Grisha. Oh, you about to walk into a whole bunch of Grisha. So I don't know. I feel like Nikolai showing up before his family shows up was probably a good thing, because you have all of those Grisha, and you have the king and queen and the first son showing up. That probably would not have been a good reception. Like, these are the people who have been hunting our people. These are the ones who have been killing our brethren, and they're here. Yeah. Especially if you think about what had already happened to the king and queen prior to everything falling. Like, the king had this illness that Jenya.
He brought that shit on himself. I have no feelings about that, except for that's what the fuck you get.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. So the Grisha have already, in a sense, attacked the royal family, and now you're taking them to the place where there's more Greek. Yeah. But we'll see how that pans out, because that's going to be interesting once they get there, especially if they see that Nikolai is there and Nikolai has offered sanctuary to the Grisha. That's going to be a problem for the royal family. So I'm curious to see how they're going to react to that.
Yeah.
They're walking into a hornet's nest, which, I mean, hey, I have no problem.
That's what they do. I mean, it's like we have a lot of like really talented, strong-willed, strong-minded people who are used to walking in the hornet's nests and beehives and like saying like what the fuck ever. I need to do what I got to do. So
yep. But that royal family ain't one of them, so that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, screw them.
So yeah.
Fuckers.
But anybody have any other thoughts about this episode? It was good. I think, like Lori said, the second episode, it was a bit slow. I still liked it, but it was slower. I think this one had a lot of the pacing was a lot quicker.
The pacing was a lot better.
Yeah.
And they're really kind of going through the story. Like, again, I see elements of books 2 and 3 coming into play. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pace this season and where they end it as far as the story goes. But yeah, this was
shout out to them showing Matthias feeding the wolves, and I'm like, if that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Like, for real. You see him, like, the wolves are growling and stuff, and here you, oh, here, I got some food for you. Like, oh, thank you. And it's like, then he's like, really?
Yeah, like the wolves are like now his best friends.
Exactly. Gee, that's not going to come back around at some point in this season.
He's
an animal whisperer. Yeah, it has to.
It has to. There was no point other than, him feeding them and being like, oh, they're sacred to us, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all of a sudden the wolves they're not dumb. They're going to be like, okay, this human we like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the fact that Matthias is now fighting, and we've already seen they put animals in the ring. So yeah, that's probably going to be a thing. Yeah. So maybe that's how Matthias gets out of Hellgate. Maybe they try to, put the wolves against him, and the wolves are like, nope, this is our boy, and they're probably going to go and kill all the guards, and maybe he can get out. That would be fun.
Wonder if he knows what's his name from Wheel of Time. He can call him.
You know what?
Oh, wow.
And on that note, that is it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fandom Hybrid. You can chat with us on our Discord channel. You can watch our videos on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.